Welcome to Florida Education News. My name is Dr. Tony Arza, and today I'm sitting down with a friend, Chris Bernier, Superintendent Duval County Public Schools.
Great to see you again, sir.
Thanks so much for being with me. The landscape in Florida is changing really quickly, and one of the things that Florida Education News tries to do is just make sure people have access to information about the changing environment. Sure. We care deeply about the citizens in Duval County. And I know that that's not how you pronounce it, but they'll forgive me. I'm Cuban, so the pronunciation on some things
we have a few more U's in that pronunciation.
But look, in the changing landscape in Florida, the universal school choice is now the law in Florida. Mm-hmm. And some board members and superintendents, I have to say, have been very vocal against that change. Others have embraced it, and I'm just curious where you stand on that changing environment. How should residents, citizens of Florida think about that changing environment as a public school leader and a leader in education? Where do you stand on the issue?
So when you think about school choice and universal school choice, I think it's really important to know the history behind how that came to be. There was a period of time in this state and many other states where you resided is where you went to school. There was a boundary that surrounded your home. You and I have been in positions where we would have been able to move our family from one boundary to another to seek a better quality education or a better high school or a better opportunity for our kids. That's how choice started. Not every family in the state of Florida or in a neighborhood or in a city like Jacksonville has the economic means to move from where they live to another place. So why not bring choice to them? And quite honestly, I think the other piece was to raise a little bit of competition in the marketplace. The public schools had, if you will, a monopoly on public ed, and the opportunity to work and engage with charter schools and for parents to have choice, I think is important, because not everybody has the economic means to pack up and move from the home that they're in to another home to go to a different school. So I think that's where I'd start that conversation.
Yeah, and I think having more parents involved in making decisions, as a parent, I know you're a parent, I think the more we can involve parents, obviously, everyone wins.
I think, I always think of education as a triangle. The schools, the students, and the parents. And for those parents who may be in the construction industry, they'll know more about what I mean by this, but an equilateral triangle is the strongest geometric figure. If you think about a building, you'll see it in all of the construction of a building. And if any one of those points fails, the whole structure fails. So if you think of parents at one point, students at another, and schools at the third point, it's that connection. And I think parents deserve that choice. I think they deserve the opportunity to look. I just really spend most of my time when I talk to parents who ask me about choice, about making an informed one. And when my kids went off to college, I made sure we had college visits. We went and saw the college. We got a good feel for it. When they went to high school, I knew who their high school principal was. I knew what the climate and culture of the building was. I just think parents shouldn't always rely on a glossy folder, and I do the same thing. I market our buildings too. I think it's really important for a parent to get out and meet the principals, get a feel for a school, and whether that's a charter school or a public one.
Yeah, no, and I hear you emphasizing the importance that parents are informed, that they can make good choices for their kids, and we can make good choices available to the parents and families. What do you think is the distinguisher that makes an education good, and what are some of those things that parents maybe should look for that you could give them some guidance? If you were to say, if a parent was to come up to ask you, I'm looking at a private school in my community, and I want to know what are some questions I should ask them. What would you say?
I would ask them to ask the same questions I hope they would ask me if they were looking at one of our public ones. What's the climate and culture? You need to go and visit. You need to think about what the climate and culture is. You get that by visiting a school building, meeting everyone from the front desk clerk to even potentially meeting the principal and taking a tour. The other piece is you have to look at the academic outcomes. I think you really have to look and see what they're producing as a product. Sometimes in my community I get some feedback that I spend and focus a little too much sometimes maybe on our K-8 charters. Most of my charter schools in our district are K-8s. They range in that grade level span, which means that all those students come back to me in ninth grade. So it's really important that K-8 in a charter school, just like K-8 in my public schools, we're doing a really good job because we have to create prepared ninth graders. I think that's one of the reasons why you've seen Duval's graduation rate rise, is because we're all combining together and working. I think the other piece for a parent to think about in that choice is what's expected of me as a parent. How can my student explore beyond reading, writing, and math, which critically are the core, but what are the other opportunities for career and technical education? What are the other opportunities for viable and really meaningful electives, foreign language acquisition? I mean, there's a lot of questions that you'd want to ask about a school building before you made a decision to whether to put your student in that one or another one.
Yeah, and then the other big thing that's happening in Duval County, you got it better.
You got your use going
the third
this
time I
time.
use it. No, but you have a referendum on the ballot. The school board has a referendum on the ballot, and I think it's always important to make sure that the citizens of Florida are aware of what that is. Make sure that they're informed, and so that they can make an informed decision. The same way they should make an informed decision about the school that their kids go to. They should make an informed decision. What do you think is important that you would want the citizens in Florida to know about what's on the ballot?
Well, I think the most important thing that they need to know is I really appreciate living in the great state of Florida. It is really amazing that we have a state statute that places these types of things before the voters. They get to decide. Specifically in Duval, I think it's important to know that the 1 mil tax rate is already in place. This is a renewal of something that already exists. It actually helps pay our teachers. In general, the average bonus is about $8,000 a year. That allows a teacher to pay medical bills. That allows a teacher to put gasoline in a car. It could be the difference between a mortgage and not paying a mortgage, additional clothing for their own children. While the state's been really great to teachers over the last 8-10 years and increasing the beginning teacher salary, they're still, in my mind, still undercompensated for the amazing work that they do. Duval got to its first historic A grade last year, a 97% grad rate, more than 35 schools moving up 1 or 2 grade levels. Like, we've had a great run in the last 2 years. That is primarily due to that wonderful individual who closes the door, turns around and looks at a group of students and says, hey, guess what we're gonna learn today? And I think we have to really start thinking about the value of an educator, and the millage will help us do that great work. It provides them additional money, and like I said, about $8,000 on the average to a teacher that can help them make ends meet.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy to get on the ballot. There were some hiccups, at least from what you can see from the fake news media. But no, there were some questions about getting on the ballot, but there was something happened. I don't know if you could share a little bit about what took place.
So in Duval, it passes through the city council. The city council is a great group of elected officials. It got through the first 2 committees pretty quickly. The finance committee had some questions. They wanted to know more about what the money went to, how it was spent, how it's been spent previously, whether we had good financial stewardship over it. We have our own separate audit advisory council that follows those dollars and makes sure they're spent appropriately on the right items and checks the payrolls to make sure that our teachers are actually getting the dollars. I think that's just good due diligence of an elected official. And once I think they got their questions answered, and then they invited some teachers and other people to come talk to them, and once they heard the stories of how teachers utilize the money, it moved from a really important civic process is to question why. And once those questions were answered, we were blessed with a unanimous vote on last Tuesday night, and it will move forward to the ballot for the people to decide in Jacksonville.
No, I mean, that's a great way to look at it, because sometimes, when you read the news, it can make it seem like, oh no, they're against it. But it seems like, you bring up something interesting, because you're saying, look, we want people to ask questions. You welcome those kind of questions to make sure that what's on the ballot is ready and that it'll have a good impact. So is there anything else that you think that voters should know about the referendum?
I do. I think there's some things that school financing is pretty complicated, right? It's not, it seems really easy, right? The state gives you money, you spend it on children. Parents and community members don't always understand that certain money comes in certain categories and it can't be transferred, for instance, to teacher pay. The money that comes to help support buildings can only support buildings, only do the infrastructure. I can't move that money over to increase the compensation. I think the other piece is, I think sometimes our community doesn't always understand that we don't set our major millage. Our major millage is set by the state legislature. They give us our millage amount that then is charged. And then the other piece in Duval that most people don't know is we're a donor district. Most people are going to say, what does that mean? The tax dollars that are created by that millage set by the state legislature goes up to the state legislature and it's redistributed in an FEFP model. We get a proportion of that money back, but some of our dollars go to smaller districts that are not large enough to support a K-12 system. So we, and I've always been in that situation, whether I was in Central Florida, Southwest Florida, or now in Northeast Florida, we've always been in a situation where we paid a lot of money in, but you don't get all of it back, because there are some other places, and I think this is a great thing about the state, don't get me wrong. I mean, it just balances the playing field for very large urban districts, but also for the small rural ones, because those kids deserve a great education too, right? And the FAFP formula does that for us. So this one particular millage, this one mill that the board can charge, I can assure everybody who votes for it or against it, that money, if it passes, will stay within Duval County, all of it, and it will go towards teachers, athletics, and the arts.
And can you tell me a little bit more? I mean, and I am a former teacher. I do teach at a college, but I'm interested in this idea of a donor district. It's the first time that I, hear a little bit about that.
Contained within the FEFP model is something called a district cost differential, and there used to be something called a scarcity supplement, right? If you've got a small rural county that only generates X number of dollars, but you have to run a K-12 system, you may not generate enough in your tax property to be able to do that. So I think it's important that voters understand that when the money goes to the state legislature, it enters a formula and it's redistributed back out. And for those small rural districts, I mean, if you lived in, I don't want to name a district, but if you lived in a district where they didn't have enough money, how would the kids go to school?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's a share. It's not necessarily a doning district, but it's a shared pot of money that's redistributed back out to ensure that all of our kids have a quality education.
It's interesting because then the referendum becomes, extremely local, and then that money gets pushed right back into the local economy.
Correct. That one mill that the voters will work to decide in November, that money, if passed, will stay within the district. It's not shared. It go directly to our teachers, and then our teachers, they spend it, right?
Yeah.
It helps drive the economic engine of our community as well.
Well, look, it's been a great pleasure to sit down with you. I always enjoy our conversations. We'll keep the philosophy for another time, but thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Pleasure to see you, sir.
Good.